I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along. I had a great conversation with Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz a little bit ago, a couple hours ago. We talked about Black History Month, and I want to share that with you. The key issues are: what does it mean for a state with massive disparities in quality of life and health and economics and wealth, to both examine, take responsibility and accountability for its failures, and chart a path towards resolution and inclusion? Well, all of that fits in with the theme of Black History. This is Black History Month. Check the interview out, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Love to have your comments, your feelings, your feedback after the show. My email is in here, Alvin Inside News. Let me know if you want to join the conversation. Thanks. Bye. Okay, AZ.
Good morning.
Good morning, Governor Walz. How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. We're live right now, so thank you for the interview. I'm Al McFarlane. This is a special edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane, talking to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. This is Black History Month, and Governor Walz, thank you for taking time to reflect on what it means to Minnesota in general, what it means to you personally. So let me start by asking you to talk about the significance of your Black History Month proclamation.
Yeah, well, Al, thanks for having me. And I think first and foremost, as as a just person and as a history teacher, being a public school teacher for all those years, we saw Black History Month as an opportunity to tell that history, to celebrate those achievements. And while it may be frustrating to some folks, many of our children don't get those stories. They don't know where they come from. They don't know the heroes beyond. It's good that they know on the civil rights leaders, but business leaders and scientific leaders and artistic leaders and all of those that go with this. So I think for me as a teacher, it was part of that. And I think as governor of Minnesota, using those proclamations is very clear, to use this month as an opportunity to refocus. And I think over the last several years, what we've seen, it becomes more important than ever to make sure we tell this history. So it's important. I hope our families took the opportunity to talk with their students. I hope we've seen, whether it be private businesses or state government, lifting up those achievements and talking about the importance, and then having the courage to talk about what we still have to do. There is no shame, and I'm incredibly proud of this state, but there's no shame in saying we have to do better in some areas. And I think Black History Month gives us that opportunity.
So what specifically are you doing, Governor Walz, to honor Black History Month? Any particular projects that you're involved in?
Yeah, and it's just, well, when we think about this, I talk often now, we unveil a budget, and we talk about a budget being a fiscal document, a moral document, making sure those equity pieces are in there, whether that be equity and bonding to Black-owned businesses, or to highlight the contributions to what this economy looks like going forward, making sure we have Black leaders in positions to make decisions. I'm very proud of our administration. Probably has the most diversity we've seen, from public safety to revenue to state government administration. Those are all strong Black leaders that are leading the state in many of those areas. And then I think highlighting, I'll be in a conversation tomorrow with some statewide leaders of lifting up and using my office's platform to lift those voices up. And again, we can be talking about successes in business. My friend Houston White, who I'm proud of and things he's done, mm-hmm. but also to have the conversations that we all have three names from Deshaun, Amir, and Jamari that are now added to that list of young Black men who are no longer with us because of gun violence. And so I think, dealing in the moment, looking towards the future, and then making sure that we're highlighting specific things that government can do, whether it be budgets or policies or leadership positions, of making sure that Black leaders are being highlighted, certainly during this month. And I know that the pushback on Black History Month that we always get is it should be every single day of the year. That's absolutely true. We understand that. But I think pausing during February to do a little above and beyond helps bring that focus a little clearer.
You mentioned you've got a great team, perhaps the most diverse team that includes Black leaders in your administration. Take a minute, if you would, to say their names and to talk about what they do for you and with you and for the citizens of Minnesota. I think sometimes not hearing it, you take things for granted, and there's
Yeah.
value in saying it.
Yeah, no, commissioners. Obviously, folks are familiar with John Harrington, probably the most experienced public safety and police officer in the state. Over 40 years of service, St. Paul chief, now at the Department of Public Safety, having him in there. All three of the top posts over there were Black leaders. I think you take a look at Department of Revenue. It's where the money goes, and Black leaders have told me this often. Don't put us in positions just to say you put us in positions. Put us in positions to use our talents to lead. Robert Doty over at Revenue, tough work. I mean, he processes all the tax returns, processes all the law changes, able to do that. Alice Roberts Davis manages all of state government management. And during COVID, this is the woman who was behind getting all of those tests, getting all of those vaccines, setting up and creating contracts to do all of this. She comes as a highly skilled executive, could have worked anywhere she wanted to. Commissioner Robertson over at the Department of Labor and Industry, protecting workers during this time, a leading voice in making sure that if we're going to ask folks to go into workplaces, they're going to be respected, safe, and put in a place to be successful. And I think those names go on and on. These are major roles. And you know, a lot of times what we saw in the past was we'd put Black leaders in positions around housing, for example. Not to say that's not important, but you need people who are in charge, who are dealing with public safety, dealing with revenue, dealing with the business of procurement, making sure that for years, Black businesses had a heck of a time trying to get contracts, and they still do have challenges of you're starting out, you want to get a contract with state government. Those are lucrative. Those are good. Those are important. And we don't create that wealth in the community. So I think having a leader like Alice over there, make sure she knows where things are coming from. And I think for most people, they're not asking for anything above and beyond. They're asking to be treated fairly as everyone else. And I think in this country, we know with those systemic barriers that are in place, you got to have folks that understand and are willing to make the push. So I couldn't be prouder of those folks. And there's numerous others, but I think 4 of those major commissioners make a huge difference.
You mentioned Houston White, my friend and fellow Northside businessman. Who else do you work with regularly in the community? And I ask the question in the sense of this whole idea of Black role models. Do you, Tim Walz, have role models in the Black community? Yeah,
and I think and I appreciate you asking that question now, because I think one of the things is, this isn't a monolithic community. There's voices all over, and I feel proud to have Houston as a friend. He's an incredible entrepreneur. He has a vision. He's funny. He whips me at golf whenever I can get out a few times. I don't know what the guy can't do, but I think he's also there to provide a very grounded thing. When friends tell friends when things could go better or things could go different. And I think in this community, just running off a few names, working with Bishop Howell, Reverend Babington Johnson, the Stair Step Foundation, 21 Days of Peace, folks. I consider them friends, and they pick up the phone in good and bad times. I've worked some with Spike Moss, who has been at this for a long time. And those who know Spike, when I'm failing, he's going to let me know it. And I think that's important. I've become friends, and I wish it wouldn't have been these circumstances, with KG Wilson, who many of you know lost his beautiful granddaughter in one of these random shootings, this unconscionable violence. KG sends me pictures. He keeps in touch and asks what we can do. And then I think when I first said I was going to run for governor, 3 people really took me under their arm a little bit and started showing me the community: Debbie Montgomery, Margaret Coleman, and Yusuf and Jeannie over here in St. Paul. But a lot of these young leaders, Leslie Redmond has called me out on things that needed to be called out on, called me out as governor of Minnesota, and has taken the time to help me try and understand, and watching young Black leaders. And I have to tell you, Al, I I feel incredibly blessed to be surrounded by people, and I hope they know that I'm trying to do the best I can to understand the community's needs. But what I've learned from all of them is that the community knows what's best for the community, and we need to trust to make sure that they're put in positions to lead. And I think us creating partnerships, understanding my role is just one person at the table, and that these communities, whether it be business, arts, public safety, and I do have to say, Al, I again am grateful for all the things in my life, but I think maybe you know this. I had the chance to serve for 12 years with John Lewis in Congress, and to be able to call somebody like John Lewis your friend. John took me to Alabama on several occasions. He sat us down in the 16th Street Baptist Church, and then introduced me to Addie Mae Collins' sister, who lost her little sister when they blew that bomb up in that church, and walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis. I mean, of seeing in the flesh that this wasn't someone out of a history book, and this wasn't something out of the 1960s. It was right here today. So the community's strong here, and whether they're fighting for equity and education, or whether they're fighting to reverse the problems we had when we tore Rondo apart. There's activists up and down, from local level all the way to the state level, to see these Black leaders now in positions of authority in the legislature. It gives me hope. It gives me hope that we can fix this. But I know I'm listening to the community. Between the pandemic and the gun violence, more work to be done.
How do you explain, Governor Waltz, the expansive set of disparities between Black and white in Minnesota? You've listed and named a number of credible, important leaders, the people that are committed to improvement, not only of the Black community, but for all Minnesota. But what's the environment that we all are operating in? How do you explain that Minnesota is one of the best places in the world to live for white people, but not so for Black people?
Yeah.
What has made that so, and how does this conversation address and seek to resolve that conundrum?
No, it's a great question, Al, and I think adding to that list of folks who are talking about this gap, obviously Justice Page around education. I think we first of all need to acknowledge, and this is one that, again, it seems probably self-evident to many of folks listening and watching, that systemic racial barriers have caused this. The inability to have generational wealth created because of starting behind to start with. That is a big deal. And for Minnesotans, I think this gap is much more apparent because, as you said, Al, the successful nature of where the white community has been able to, whether it be educational achievement, business startups, and things like that, puts us at a disadvantage. And I do think some of this is cultural, Al, that the inability to just call this out. I mean, I was very proud when we were able to issue a posthumous pardon to Max Nason. It took us 100 years to acknowledge that a crowd of 10,000 gathered in Duluth and lynched several young Black innocent folks, and then sent Max to prison. I think those are the types of things that we have to have this conversation. And I know people are engaged, and I see parents going to school boards. I'm glad of that. I hope the Black parents are there too, because I'll tell you what, our kids are strong enough. If Ruby Bridges could walk in that school in New Orleans, that little girl, our kids can hear about what happened. And then I think acknowledging that, I think we've seen this globally. We saw it in South Africa. If you're not willing to have a truth and reconciliation around what's happened in the past, it's very difficult to move forward. So I think here we're still struggling to have that conversation. And then I think we've seen these barriers. Why is it that Black businesses don't get procurement through state contracts at the highest level? Many of it is because of institutional barriers. And then having this conversation around school, our children need to be in a position where they're safe in their homes, they're food secure, and they have the opportunities that everyone else has. So I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of an inability to address some of these past differences. And then I think some of it is that we've got to trust the community itself to be able to lead and make these decisions. I think there's been a real hesitancy to move resources and money into community where they make their decisions. And that's kind of, I hope my budget starts to reflect. You don't need You don't need someone, a white person riding in and fixing the problems here. What you need to do is remove the barriers, make it fair, and let folks lead. And I think that's hopefully the conversation we're starting to move to.
Minnesota has the dubious reputation, Governor, of being ground zero for what's the right word for it, for the challenges of race and justice,
Yes.
law enforcement, etc. George Floyd, recently Amir, before that Dante Wright. And so how do we take these horrific incidences, and you referred to it already, I think, and turn them into stepping stones, learnings, teachings that reflect what humans are capable of transforming themselves into as a community, as a society, as a state? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think one thing now, we got to get rid of these false choices of things and take, for example, the public safety piece of this. We cannot accept this of these police involved shootings back into the center of this with the mayor lock. But we also can't accept our children being shot on the streets in gun violence. And we need police, we need public safety working with community. And I think the way I see it is we can get beyond some of that. Minnesota can prove this. And I think we need to seize the moment that the world was watching in 2020. And I said it then, and I still say it now, Al. I'm afraid if we don't continue to make progress on this, when will we? When will we? And tens of thousands of people out in the streets legitimately expressing this generational grief. We had folks take advantage of that and turn that into violent situations. I think many of Al, the people that were most hurt by that were the Black-owned businesses.
Yep.
and families. And so I think getting rid of this false choice on this, there's some that we're going to be tough on crime. That's fine, but we better be tough on the cause of crime, and we better be willing to recognize that the systemic racial barriers and racism that created lack of home ownership, lack of school achievement. It's not because this, our children can learn, that they can learn, they can achieve, but what's holding them back? And so I'm still committed and believe that this is an opportunity. But what I fear, Al, is that kind of a reverting back. And what we're seeing now is that we do need to be tough on crime. But mass incarceration of Black youth is not going to fix this problem. We have to have a more holistic approach, whether it be investments early on in home ownership and schools, whether it be gun related issues to get those guns off the streets, or whether it be making sure we're targeting the people who are doing this, because it's certainly not the entire population, but there are folks that are preying on others. And the statistics on this is these shootings are predominantly hurting the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
That's who's in the middle of this.
Let me close with your thoughts on the political landscape, 22 and 24. What are the stakes? What are the issues? And how do you motivate both awareness, engagement, involvement, people taking their civic responsibility very seriously and making sure that the will of the people is not subverted by initiatives to derail, marginalize voters, suppress voters?
Yeah, and this isn't. I don't say this as a pejorative, but it's clear there are folks that want to make it more difficult to vote. I make no bones about it. Voting should be one of the easiest things you do. When people bring up this, well, you got to have a license to do this. None of that is relevant to the point of being able to exercise the most important right you have, right to be able to cast that vote. So I think here in Minnesota, I'm very proud that we have few barriers to voting. And of course, as we know, we have almost no election fraud at all that has ever occurred. So I think we need to set that narrative right. I do think what's at stake is this this continued idea that we should shrink who votes. Some folks aren't even pretending anymore. They're saying it straight up right. We're back to the old, if you're not a landowner, you're not going to vote. And we've seen this. We've taken away the rights of felons to vote. They do their time, they come back out, and we still make it hard for them to vote.
Mm-hmm.
They should have every right to do that. And I think what I think is at stake is that ability to have people engaged. And if it becomes harder for people to vote, it won't just be about certain groups losing elections. It'll be about a cynicism that sinks into people and they quit being engaged. And I'll tell you, when people are oppressed and they have no legal way to fix that, is it any wonder that they're going to turn to the streets? Is it any wonder that they're going to turn to things? Because that is the only way to bring about change. So I think here in Minnesota, continuing to engage, I'm going to continue to make the case that we're one Minnesota. I know some have said, well, since you've been elected, it's been worse on that. Between the global pandemic and George Floyd and others, there's no doubt that's strained, but I'm still convinced the way out of this is to see ourselves interconnected in this, see that if the Black community is doing well, the white community is doing well, the indigenous community is going to be doing well, and to keep moving in that direction. So I don't think it'll be easy. I think there are those that would like to turn back the clock. I'm not interested in that. And I think here in Minnesota, there's enough leadership coming out of the communities that they're not going to allow it to happen either.
What's the playbook, Governor, for you and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan? What's on the political agenda for both of you, the strategy?
Yeah. I think getting out and talk to as many people as possible, making the case that when the times were tough, we led. I accepted responsibility, willing to put out programs that work. And I think the biggest thing is if I wanted to hear what I would like someone to say is that he listened, learned, and worked with the communities themselves to make Minnesota a better place to live. My goal, Allison, when I took this job, was to make Minnesota the best place in the country to raise a family and have a child. I think we have a lot of reasons to be hopeful about that, but we're leaving some folks behind. And so I think our goal is to get out there and talk to people, show them that politics can be joyful. It can be something to lift up your life. Your voice matters. It's not about denigrating the other side. It's not about, catchphrases or making fun of people. It's about saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'll use my position to be a part of that, and I'll stand up and take responsibility when it doesn't work. And I think that's what we've done. The news around COVID is looking better. Our state has a budget that can start to correct some of these paths. We have folks out there who are leading. Now we just need to bring it together and make it happen.
Governor Tim Walz, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Al. Good to see you.
Take care. Yeah, I'm unmuting now. Thank you. A great conversation with Governor Tim Walz. Our thanks to him. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. What I appreciate is that his office reached out wanting to connect with Insight News and connect with Conversations with Al McFarlane. And it tells me that the political climate is changing, moving in the right direction, that we have the possibility of really being seen in ways that we haven't been in the past. Too often, I believe that institutions of power, even in our government, have not paid attention to the voice and the interest of our people as we present our own voice and our own analysis of both challenges, but also of opportunities to be problem solvers. I was on a panel this morning where we talked about the need for legislators to see Black people as part of the solution, not simply the problem. Too often, I said, we are cast and projected and confined to the problem side of the equation. Our challenge is, and our demand is to be seen as owners of the solution. But until we are presented and engaged as problem solvers and solutions, problems will not be solved. Well, in a moment or two, we're going to be joined by another friend or colleague. I hope she can get in, but I can talk about her and work that she's doing, that I'll be doing with her to talk about closing the Black wealth gap. In the upcoming edition of Insight News, there's an article written by Nika Robbins, who talks about how a major community organization has set sights on helping 9,000 Black families own a home. And this is a conversation about a project being created by Build Wealth Minnesota. Brother David McGee, who's been here in the past and he'll be here in the future, is the organizer and principal in Build Wealth Minnesota. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to doing just that, building wealth. For over 18 years, they've supported over 3,000 people becoming homeowners. Now, the mission is to take it to scale, to turn the dial, turn the heat up, and deal with the uh, challenging statistics that show that there's still a huge gap, a huge disparity in home ownership and in wealth. And we're going to talk about that. But the project that we're doing that's launching, it'll be launching with a full page ad in next week's Inside News, is called uh, uh, 9,000 Equities. Great name. We're the land of 10,000 lakes. How about the land of 9,000 equities? 9,000 equities meaning how do we get 9,000 people into home ownership over a measurable period of time? Well, that's the mission. That's uh, the goal of this project, and I expect that it's going to be a wonderful, uh, educating, um, uplifting experience. Not only will people get into homes, but they also will get a chance uh, to create a new vocabulary, new language in the community that talks about home ownership, about wealth creation, wealth building. Well, my friend Anika Robbins is here. And Anika, I've quoted liberally from the article that you have written that we are presenting as as a lead feature in the upcoming copy of Insight News. And this conversation between me and you is long, long, long overdue. We've got just a wonderful and extensive history of paying attention to what's happening in our community, not only locally, but nationally and internationally. And Anika, it's certainly a pleasure to collaborate with you on behalf of Build Wealth Minnesota and on behalf of our people. Talk about wealth creation, creating intergenerational wealth, creating solutions to the problems that we end up, being saddled with. Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane.
Thank you so much, sir. It's good to see you. I know you hate when I call you sir, but
Yeah,
it's how we do.
you can call me Al or anything. Sarah's fine too. I don't care really. You
Oh,
know,
thank you
I
so much for the invitation and to
yeah
really highlight the great work that Build Wealth Minnesota is doing, has been doing
yeah.
for almost 20 years. But this campaign is really exciting, and I'm honored and proud to be serving as the project manager and media consultant with it. It's going to be an exciting time for Black Minnesotan families with that culturally competent hand holding and support to help more of our families get into home ownership.
And so you've got statistics background that sort of set the stage, and a number of them are in the article that you penned for Inside
Mhm,
News. Go
mhm.
through that. I mean, what's the lay of the land? Talk about, and you can use your article if you want to refer to that. But let's give
Sure.
people an idea of the place we're coming from to.
Well, thank you so much. So we understand, right? That the African American experience in Minnesota and indeed in America hasn't always been favorable. We know that Minnesota has a history of redlining. We know that many of our families have been historically disenfranchised. And then there's also predatory lending practices. And so coming out of this, it's critically important to help our families navigate these things. Black families deserve to have access to the American dream, the African American dream. And so what we're looking at, I'm trying to see if I can pull up our data sheet, but um, basically the white families are more likely to be homeowners by about 76%. And I'm loosely
Mhm,
quoting here once I pull that up. But Black
mhm.
families, only 26% are homeowners. And also Black renters, kind of conversely, are higher than white renters. And so these are huge gaps. And then it speaks to other social determinants, income, employment access, and so many other things. And we know that home ownership is a key indicator of wealth. And so the goal is to make sure that more families are able to navigate these processes, Build Wealth is doing an amazing job of removing some of those barriers. They have a variety of loan products, down payment assistance. But I think the thing that's really critical is their family stabilization plan, which helps families develop a healthier relationship with their money, and then with laying the foundations to becoming a homeowner, and then also to be thinking about college for their children and legacy creation. That's really what this is about, is helping Black families create a solid legacy for their families and generations to come.
I'm trying to put on the screen some of the documents that you're working
Oh,
from.
good. You have
Yeah, I'm trying to load it up so we can share that and have you talk. We can both talk about
Yeah.
it. Let's see, but hang on a second. I'm trying to, you have to do a tab. Make this work, screen. Yeah, sometimes this works perfectly. Sometimes it
Me, I
challenges me.
know.
Yeah,
I have so many windows open. I'm like, where is it?
yeah.
But we do have amazing graphics that really just show with stunning clarity, what we're really talking about in terms of the racial wealth gap and the disparities in home ownership. And really for Minnesota to be as progressive and liberal as we profess to be, these numbers are just, they're disappointing to say. How about that?
Okay. Well, I'm still trying to make this share until we get that going, and maybe I'll come back. I don't know if AZ, you can help me or make it available for me to share. What I've got on screen here is a slide called the equity gap. I'm not able to share it, but it's a pie chart, and it shows that white owner-occupied households in Minnesota equal about 1.4 million. White renter-occupied households about 500,000, less than that, 435,000, and that the equity gap, Black owner-occupied households, only 29,000. So let's look at that. White owner-occupied households in Minnesota, 1,452,000 plus. Black owner-occupied households in Minnesota, 29,209. Just the idea of that is depressing. I mean, how did this happen? White renter-occupied households, 435,000 for our state's population. Black renter-occupied households, 86,000. So here's the converse. Of the 2 million white households in this study, 1.5 are owner-occupied, and 500,000 are rent-occupied among white people. Of Black people, we're looking at about 110,000 households altogether. About 30,000 are owner-occupied, but almost 90,000 are renter-occupied. We're upside down.
Yes.
Upside down. And that's a problem. This initiative, 9,000 Equities, is going to address.
Yes.
It's stunning.
Thank you. And really how they arrived at the 9,000, the disparity gap it roughly equates to 52%, right? That's really what we're looking at in order to bring Black families to parity with, standard home ownership. And so in doing the math and the calculations, Build Wealth with David McGee and Jeff Robinson, they basically took a chunk of that, which is 15%, in which the goal is to hit 900 families per year and then accelerate that over the next 4 to 7 years. And I also want to point out that, the work is being done in collaboration with several partners. We're really pleased with the number of banking institutions that support this initiative, including U.S. Bank and Wells Fargo, LISC, Polad family, and others, but also many of the realtors, some of my rock star friends like Shauna Frazier and Trey Adams, and several other amazing realtors, real estate professionals, Henry Rucker, Trent Tucker, several other folks who are also on board as partners. So this is a collaborative effort where Black professionals in the banking and financing and real estate industries are all coming together, because we know these numbers, right? We know we know these numbers. We've been seeing them, studying them, and whatnot. But it's time now to really put the pedal to the metal and make some things happen. You know, you can no longer just talk about it. We have to be about it. And Build Wealth Minnesota, through the 9,000 Equities program, has really clearly laid out a vision and a strategic plan to help Black families also become homeowners.
Let's see, I'm looking through the PowerPoint now again, you're going to be presenting, what's the media campaign? You can share that. I have a copy of the full page ad that's going to be running in Monday's edition,
Yes.
announcing with a beautiful family picture, a Black family, a mom and a dad looks like, and two beautiful kids, a phone number to call, and information. The message is helping Black families own a home. Real simple, real straightforward, and it looks like it's a joyous proposition and activity. Great choice of presentation. But talk about the plan. How do you involve the public in general? What are all the elements in this program?
Thank you. So Anika and Friends, my firm was we led the design and strategic development on what this is. This is huge. We're very proud of this. I mean, folks will begin to see billboards. They'll begin to see television commercials, radio, partnerships like what we have with Insight News and other print publications. Obviously, an intense social media campaign, relational engagements, and some other exciting things that I don't want to share just yet because it's kind of a big deal. But like I said, the idea is like we're serious and we are investing dollars behind this. And you know me, Al, representation is it matters. And so having a vibrant Black family represented. And there are other images because we know that there are various types of family structures, right? So we want any and everybody who's ready to become a homeowner to believe and understand that they are able to do this with the right support. And so like you said, it's straight no chaser, right? We're not tiptoeing around it. We are being very explicit in saying that our goal is to target and reach and support and help Black families. So often, we have to kind of coddle our our messaging and our approach to things and kind of minimize Blackness. So this is a very pro-Black campaign. And, we talked about it, and this is where the client wanted to go. And I'm glad for it because so few things are for us, right? For us, by us. And so this is very much that campaign. And it will be reflected in several of the artistic collaterals, promotional pieces that people will begin to see across our region. So this is not just a North Side thing. This is not just a Minneapolis thing. We're reaching out to Black potential first-time home buyers in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hennepin, Ramsey County, and the surrounding outer ring suburbs. So it's a big thing, and I'm honored and humbled that they chose us to help them bring this to fruition as a thought partner and consultant. We're excited. And can't wait till you all start to see everything.
Well, I think I got my screen share working. Do you see it up on your screen?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful ad. It's a beautiful message. And I want to remind people to keep looking for messages as the campaign unfolds. I'm going to flip through this other material here, and you might want to talk about some of this. Let's see. This is the chart.
Oh, yeah, there was the chart.
But it's a great graphic because it sort of puts out there exactly what the numbers are in a pie chart format, and you can see these.
I mean, the homeowners and white homeowners and Black renters are essentially the same, like you said, upside down. And I think that's just very stunning. and it's appalling as well. And so our goal is to flip the script, so to speak. And it pretty much mirrors, opposites on down the line. And so, again, these are new numbers. Those who are in this industry, legislators, they're aware of these numbers, but now
Mhm.
it's like it's time to do something about it, and Build Wealth is doing that.
You talked about Brother David McGee. Here's a great slide of one of his presentations. But talk about him. I had the pleasure. I've known David for a long time. We've been talking about how Insight News, McFarlane Media, could collaborate for a long time, and I am happy, Anika, that this opportunity has created this collaboration that I get to be a part of. And the bonus is working with you. I mean,
I like
so
that.
so we're going to be together,
Yes.
working on ideas that we've all embraced, and that is the success, the
Yes.
growth, the building of wealth of our people. You and I, entrepreneurs, have been forever, and have the spark and passion for growing opportunity in our people, and for doing that in a way that's prideful, that
Right.
engenders respect, pride, and appreciation, and a sense of confidence that we are capable. And so, talk about Brother David McGee, if you will.
Absolutely.
I
I
have nothing
can't
but praise for him. What are your thoughts?
I have to brag on him. David McGee is incredible visionary, but at the same time, incredibly humble, right? But he's got laser sharp focus on this campaign. And like I said, this is not new. They've been here. And like we always joke in our meetings, don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years. And so, starting out through the faith ministry, engaging families through the Black church. And I want you to know, El, that, we were very intentional about involving Minnesota's Black media. Like that was paramount to David, and making sure, and of course, you know how I feel about it coming from Black media. It was important to involve all of our platforms and our spokespeople, the people that bring our stories our way to us. And so we've been very intentional and dedicated considerable funds to make sure that we can, because we understand, it's important to support our media.
Well, take a minute. Take a minute and name some of the other players. I mean,
Oh,
I
sure.
think we
I was
have to
trying to be
always
mindful, but okay.
we have to support and promote each other. It's
Yes,
appropriate. This is not about competition. It's about
I
how do we
know.
work
Oh,
together.
bless it. I love
Yeah.
it. I
So
love it. I
give
mean,
everybody some credit. Yeah.
you all, of course, Inside News, North News, Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, KMOJ. Our ads are running on KMOJ as we speak. My organization, I'll just say that as well. And then we have billboard campaigns. So you will be seeing them in the places, the major thoroughfares that we travel. Social media, of course, and then you'll also be seeing it through all of our partners, because we're co-branding this campaign, because we want people to have a vested interest in it. They do have a vested interest in it. We all benefit when we're all winning, and that's really what the function and purpose of this campaign is about. But David is, he's a banking veteran. He has over 39 years in the lending and financial industries. His wife also, they both have been passionate and committed about helping our communities, our families, individuals, to access, upward mobility and to become financially stable and secure. So, through workshops and brokering and helping people, who were negatively impacted by the housing crash in 2009 and 2010. So this is, and it's a family affair. So the image that you have up, this is the McGee family, and all of the members are vested. Jeff is not related as far as I know, but another brother who's just genuinely committed. When you look at some of the testimonials from people, they're all talking about that personal touch and the patience, and just helping people navigate these complex systems. We know that systems are often the barrier for people achieving anything, whether it's homeownership, a job, and so having people that are committed to walking with you through your lack of awareness, your own insecurities, or fears. These are the unspoken things that we go through, that I've gone through, So the community is really fortunate to have a committed Black-led organization
So
who's leading
name the
this.
people on the image there right now, if
Let's
you want.
see. So I'm always going to get the brothers confused. So on the far left is Jeff Robinson. He's the senior program manager. David McGee is right next to him in the gray suit, his wife, Regina. And then we have Talana, who's more the financial officer. And then Dejan, I think, is in the middle, and Dimitri is in the back. And they lead, an impressive youth engagement, which is important, to start to getting our young ones, young adults, teenagers thinking about how they're going to manage their money and start making plans now rather than waiting until they're 30 and 40 years old. So, really committed family organization that's dedicated to helping your family become financially secure.
That's amazing, and I love the idea that this is presenting and is in actuality a family affair, that it speaks truth to how we navigate, how we succeed through and across generations. Family is always primary in our community, in our culture. And so to the degree that we walk away from the knowledge and the power of family, we isolate ourselves in environments that are not supportive of our development. We if we seek to become the individualized expression, we make ourselves vulnerable. But if
Yes.
we maintain and carry forth and walk through, and within the power of our family, to me, Anika, it means we're walking in legacy, and
Yes.
we're walking with an acute awareness of history, of the ancestors that are still around us all the time,
That's
and
right.
we're walking with a particular joy of knowing that this walk is the pathway to the future. What we do now in this moment of awareness, of intentionality, is something that reflects the best of what human beings can be, and we're finally finding out that we can be our true selves, be our authentic selves. And in doing so, we change ourselves and we become ourselves and we change the world. That's what I think.
I
And
think that was a word. That was a word.
yeah.
This image, these were participants and some of the partners and stakeholders. We held a intimate stakeholder breakfast in December. And so, the sister Kizzy from over at the Aurora St. Anthony Development Center in St. Paul, Model Cities, and a few other folks. So, I mean, we have all of our trusted leaders and organizations who have signed on to support this work. So, whether you're on the north side or the south side or St. Paul, there will be some support there with folks who understand it, who get it, who are able to assist you on your homeownership journey.
Anika, thank you so much. What I want to do now, if you don't mind, you can always tell me no, you know that, but I'd love to talk about you, about your work. You've been a phenomenal entrepreneur and a leading light in community. You've been consistent. And every chance I get, I ask people to talk about what it is that makes you, you. And by that, I mean, I operate from the premise that none of us is here alone, that you simply are an extension. I simply am an extension and an expression of my parents and my parents' parents and all those generations that go back to the beginning, right? And so, Anika Robbins, who are you?
I am somebody.
That's right. Talk about it. Talk about it.
Quoting Reverend Jesse Jackson, I mean, those were some of the messages that, I grew up listening to. But, I'm originally from the south side of Minneapolis. I was raised in Lagos, Nigeria. And so with listening to you speak earlier about, the spirituality and our ancestors and that connection, I'm very rooted in that. And a lot of the work that we do through my other hat, my organization, the Anika Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization, is about helping connect our community back to spirit and to root in some of those village principles, that we are not here alone, and we are part of something greater. In African traditions, you often can tell who a person is by their name. You can
Mhm.
tell what tribe they come from by
Mhm.
their name or their tribal marks or their dialect and their accents. And it's the same here in America. When you hear a last name, like I mentioned, Jesse Jackson, we know who that is.
Mhm.
And so for me, I belong to the Merrills. And so those Merrills are Mary Merrill, the first Black commissioner for Parks and Rec in Minneapolis. I belong to the former Senator Hayden, and by extension, Peter Hayden.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, I recognize the shoulders that I'm standing on. And I feel like I owe to my family and to my ancestors to not let their sacrifices be in vain. And so the Anika Foundation mobilizes around three core impact areas: economic empowerment, health
Mhm.
equity, and civic engagement. You may be familiar with me through our Black Folks Matter Minnesota program, which we founded when Jamar Clark was killed by Minneapolis Police Department. And that work has been organizing to get more Black people registered to vote and
Mhm.
actually voting. It has been committed to creating a platform for leaders, emerging leaders, to consider running for office, because we understand we have to increase representation and we
Mhm.
have to increase civic participation in order to bring about the changes that we'd like to see in our community. So that's, I'm a wife, I'm married to Dr. Juno Robbins. I belong to him, and my son, our son, Lorden, who's 11 now. How can you believe it? He's 11 years old. And so, and I belong to the North Side and the South Side, and to Nigeria and, Chicago and other places that have claimed me. And I'm glad to be claimed. But, we're getting ready to launch some things around this youth and gun violence.
Mhm.
That's very passionate about that, because I feel like our youth are missing that connectivity as
Mhm.
well. They're missing that strong sense of family and belonging, and knowing that there are people here that care about them, and knowing that there is more to life than maybe what they're seeing. I always say,
Mhm.
Northside is only 50 blocks long,
Mhm.
but there's a whole wide world
Mhm.
beyond that. And,
Mhm.
so we've been very involved with helping kids graduate, giving out laptops, giving out business micro grants and scholarships. We just want people to know that, they whose they are and who they belong to. But it's important to remember who brung you too, right?
Mhm.
So
I
thank you for allowing me to share those things. So
Yeah.
everything I do, and this, everything I do and have done has been about elevating
Mhm.
our community, our collective, and our broader human spirit. And so that's who I am and what I'm about.
Tell me a little bit more about your Lagos experience, the time you lived in
Oh,
Lagos.
Lagos. Whew. So we moved to Nigeria in 1980, actually.
Mhm.
Hang on one second. So we moved there when I was young, when I was 7 years old. And
Mhm.
that's where I completed secondary school. I learned to speak Yoruba, and
Mhm.
I speak pretty good broken and pidgin English. But my parents own a chain of salons. My mom is a cosmetologist, and her and my dad opened a salon in Lagos, salon in Ijebu-Ode, which is in the neighboring state of Ogun, and then also in the Republic of Benin. So, my early entrepreneurial leanings clearly come from that, passing out flyers with my father and helping out in the shop with my mom. And going to school and just learning those cultural traditions and the thought process, just those are all things that stay with me, and even the way we engage each other, there's a level of respect and honor, so this is why, as an elder, it's very difficult for me to to refer to you or any of my elders by their first name, because that is
Understand.
simply not the way that we
Mhm.
were raised. And
Mhm.
so, and that's the other thing, is like giving people their due respect, right?
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't take anything away from you. And then how do we build collectively? I always tell
Mhm.
people my first president wasn't Obama. My first Black president was Shagari. This is in the 80s when the Naira was equivalent to the dollar.
Mhm.
And so I grew up seeing positive Black images on billboards and television at age
On
7.
currency. Yeah.
All currency,
Yeah.
yeah. Same with Jamaica, right? So,
Mhm. Mhm.
so when you grow up with that sense of belonging and that
Mhm.
sense of seeing your ancestors' greatness,
Mhm.
right? I've never felt less than. I
Mhm.
returned to the US and encountered a lot of, gristling, because
Mhm.
I knew who I was. I know who
Mhm.
I am.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of pressure to assimilate. And, I may have for a time, but, as a grown Black woman who's paid her dues, assimilate not, now it's authentic leadership, authentic voice. And I'm often in places, serving as the former chair of the Minneapolis Civil Rights Commission, to raise my voice when our broader community does not, or doesn't know how, or don't have time to go to these meetings. So I would simply say people should consider tapping into that deep ancestral voice and rise up to it,
Mhm.
and lead where you can, help where you can, but leave feelings of mediocrity and less behind, because this is not who we are. This is not who our ancestors were. Even in slavery, we didn't start out as slaves. We started out as tradespeople. We started out as hunters, as scholars, as mathematicians, as astronomers, as engineers. So um, that's who I am.
Well, what to put a fantastical spin on the conversation, and this is not to belittle or to
Mhm,
diminish anything that we've experienced in culture through the
mhm.
transatlantic slave trade,
Absolutely not.
but part of being sane
Mm,
and separating yourself from the horrific experience is to look at it and say, we were just kidding. You thought we were your slaves, but we had another agenda,
that's
and
right.
that agenda is unfolding right now. We
As
were
it
here
is.
to save you,
Yeah.
and in
And we're
being
seeing it
in
throughout
being
the
ourselves,
diaspora. Yes, we're
in being
seeing it
ourselves,
around the diaspora.
you're
Mhm,
going to finally wake up and become a decent human being. We believe you can. Listen, I'll close with this. I saw you last week on social media
mhm,
at the protest, at one of
mhm,
the protests downtown.
mhm,
So I want to commend you, but also acknowledge that
mhm.
you're not just talking. Uh, you put your body on the line. You put your business on the line. You put your life on the line, and that's what it takes. That's what it's about. So I want to acknowledge that you speak truth to power, and you walk the walk. You say what must be said, and you say it with conviction, with the degree of fierceness and fearlessness. Anika
Mhm.
Robbins, thank you, my sister. Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to working with you on this project and beyond.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
You too.